Commander Alex Ryden had seen many things in his career as a human explorer, but nothing could have prepared him for the attention he was receiving on the neutral space station Orlia. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes as the artificial gravity hummed softly beneath him. Around him, the station bustled with aliens of all shapes and sizes, some with transparent skin showing a network of glowing veins, some with limbs that seemed to bend in impossible ways, and a few whose eyes glowed faintly like stars. Humans were rare here, and Alex had grown used to the strange stares and whispered questions, but today was different. The communication console beeped insistently. A message had come through on a secure channel reserved for diplomatic matters. Alex frowned, tapping the screen. The message was not long, but the language was formal, precise, and carried a tone of urgency. It was from the Virelians, a species that humans had only recently confirmed could exist outside myth. He had read about them in briefings, female predominant, highly intelligent, and, according to the reports, deeply interested in human DNA. That was unusual, to say the least. He adjusted his uniform as a soft chime announced visitors docking at the station. The main viewing window revealed a sleek ship gliding effortlessly into the docking bay. Its design was unlike anything Alex had seen before. It shimmered with a faint, iridescent light, shifting colors as if alive. He felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Humans were explorers, yes, but this was stepping into a new level of uncertainty. A team of Virelian delegates entered the station, moving with an elegant precision that seemed almost choreographed. Their bodies were humanoid in shape, but taller, lithe, and their skin shimmered with a subtle metallic sheen. Their eyes were large, almond-shaped, and glowed softly in hues of blue and green. Alex noticed immediately that they carried no weapons. There was no threat in their posture, only purpose. "Commander Ryden," one of them spoke in flawless galactic standard, her voice melodic but commanding. "We have come to speak with you regarding your species' DNA." Alex blinked. "My DNA? You mean for research?" He tried to keep his voice calm, though his heart thudded. He had handled first contact before, but this was different. The message implied collaboration, but the way they said it carried a weight of expectation he could not ignore. The Virelian nodded. "Yes, your genetic structure is unique. It carries qualities our species requires to advance. We request your participation." Alex cleared his throat. "I see. And how exactly do you want me to participate?" He tried to keep his tone professional, but there was a knot in his stomach. "Through the natural method," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "We will not use technology to artificially extract your DNA. The process must remain as nature intended." Alex frowned. Natural method. He had read the briefings. There was a note about it, but it had been vague. The idea was that the Virelians' process required collaboration, adaptability, and problem-solving, traits humans were said to excel in, but the details were mysterious. He swallowed hard. "And what does that mean in practice?" The Virelian smiled faintly, a gesture almost imperceptible. "You will see soon enough, but know this, it will require your intelligence, creativity, and courage. Only then can the transfer succeed." Alex exhaled, running a hand through his hair. He had faced dangerous missions before, fought hostile species, and navigated deadly environments, but this was different. This was not a battle of strength, but of wits and adaptability. And somehow he felt that the stakes were higher than they seemed. The delegation led him to a chamber within the station he had never seen before. It was circular, with smooth, reflective walls that seemed to absorb light. A faint hum resonated through the floor, and strange patterns glimmered across the walls, changing as he moved. Alex could feel the subtle vibrations through his feet, as if the chamber itself was alive. "You will begin with an orientation," the Virelian explained. "It is essential for synchronization." Alex nodded, though he had no idea what synchronization entailed. He stepped forward, instinctively observing every detail. The chamber had no visible controls, yet lights shifted when he moved. The air smelled faintly metallic, and a subtle warmth spread through his skin. "First, you must demonstrate adaptability," she said. "Respond to changes in the environment without hesitation. Human ingenuity will be tested." The walls rippled, and the floor subtly shifted beneath him. He stumbled but quickly adjusted his balance. The patterns on the walls shifted, forming what appeared to be symbols. He had learned to recognize alien languages even partially, but this was different. The symbols were not purely linguistic. They were a puzzle, a challenge to his perception and reasoning. Alex crouched slightly, focusing on the symbols. His training kicked in and he began tracing the patterns with his fingers, memorizing the sequences. His heart raced. The symbols moved, changing in response to his actions, as if testing his attention to detail. He realized that this was the first part of the process: observing, analyzing, and adapting. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Alex had no way of telling before the Violin nodded. "You are quick to learn. Good. But intelligence alone will not suffice. Emotional coordination is essential." Alex frowned. "Emotional coordination. Yes, our species responds to emotional cues. You must attune yourself to us, not only in thought but in understanding our intent, our rhythms." She moved closer, demonstrating subtle gestures and micro-expressions. Alex watched carefully, imitating them as best he could. He realized that this was as much a test of empathy as intellect. He began to notice patterns in her movements, subtle shifts in light, and the way the symbols responded to different emotional states. His training in observation, combined with human intuition, allowed him to start predicting the next sequence. The chamber seemed to hum in approval, a resonance that Alex felt in his chest. Hours later, Alex emerged from the chamber, mentally exhausted but exhilarated. The Violins observed him silently. He could see a trace of approval in their glowing eyes. "You have performed well," the lead Violin said. "The next stage will require more than observation and adaptation. You must contribute to the process actively." Alex nodded, swallowing the nervous lump in his throat. He had no idea what that contribution would look like. The notion of actively participating in a genetic collaboration was beyond anything he had imagined. Yet he felt a flicker of excitement. Humans had always thrived when faced with the unknown, and somehow he knew this was no different. As he prepared to leave the chamber, he paused to observe the Violins. There was a grace in their movements, a precision that humans could rarely match. But he also noticed something else. Despite their elegance and intelligence, there was a trace of uncertainty in their eyes. They were confident, yes, but they relied on him, and perhaps on humanity itself, to succeed. That thought strengthened him. Humans had faced impossible odds countless times and had survived, adapted, and thrived. This was a new challenge, but one he was uniquely equipped to meet. His mind began racing with ideas, potential strategies, and ways to approach the unknown stages of the process. The Violins escorted him back to his quarters, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Alex sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the stars beyond the station's viewing window. Somewhere out there, other species were watching, waiting, curious about humans and their capabilities. And here he was, the unexpected representative of humanity in a moment that could redefine how other civilizations saw them. He felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. The path ahead was uncertain, and he had no way of knowing exactly what the Violins required. But he understood one thing clearly: human traits, curiosity, ingenuity, empathy, and courage would determine the outcome. And Alex Ryden was ready to show that humanity could not be underestimated. As he lay back, he allowed himself a small, wry smile. The situation was unusual, even absurd in its way, but if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning the absurd into an opportunity. He closed his eyes, letting his mind prepare for whatever the next stage might demand. Whatever the natural method truly meant, Alex was determined to meet it head-on, with everything that made him human. Outside, the stars shone as if watching, silent witnesses to the beginning of a collaboration that could change the course of civilizations. And somewhere, deep within the vastness of space, the Virelians waited, hopeful that humanity would rise to the occasion. Alex woke to the soft hum of the station's artificial gravity and the pale glow of the morning light spilling through the observation window. He had spent the night turning over the events of the previous day in his mind. The Virelians' request for his DNA and their insistence on the so-called natural method had left him uneasy but also oddly exhilarated. Humans thrived in the unknown, in challenges that required ingenuity and courage, and he was about to prove it. After a quick breakfast of nutrient paste and fruit capsules, Alex dressed in his standard explorer uniform, checking every pocket and strap for his usual tools. While he had no idea what the next stage would involve, he knew that preparation and careful observation were human strengths. The Virelians had already tested his adaptability and attention to detail. Now it seemed they were ready to escalate the challenge. A chime sounded, signaling the arrival of his guests. The Virelians glided into his quarters, their movements fluid and synchronized, as if each step had been carefully rehearsed. The lead Virelian spoke first. "Commander Raiden, the next stage of the process requires direct participation. You will be integrated into our protocol for genetic collaboration. Fear not, your species' ingenuity will guide you." Alex nodded, trying to mask his nervousness. "Understood. I'm ready to begin." They led him through a corridor he had never noticed before, walls pulsating faintly with light that shifted in response to movement. He realized the station itself seemed alive, almost aware of their presence. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber, circular like the one from the previous day but more complex. Strange devices floated in the air, glowing softly, their functions not immediately obvious. "Observe first," the Virelian instructed. "The chamber will react to your choices." Human problem-solving is essential. Alex stepped forward carefully. As he did, the floating devices began to move, forming a pattern that resembled a complex puzzle. Symbols appeared in mid-air, shifting and rotating. He could feel a slight vibration in the floor, almost like the chamber was testing his reaction speed and ability to remain calm under pressure. He took a deep breath and studied the puzzle. The symbols seemed random at first, but his training in pattern recognition kicked in. Slowly, he began connecting them, tracing sequences in his mind. Every correct movement caused a soft glow to pulse through the chamber, as if rewarding his progress. Every mistake caused a brief flicker of dimming light, signaling that he needed to try again. Hours passed in this manner. Alex found himself entering a rhythm, a combination of observation, deduction, and instinct. The Virelians observed silently, their glowing eyes never leaving him. Occasionally, one of them would tilt her head, prompting subtle adjustments to his actions. It became clear that this was not just a test of intellect, but also of perception and emotional synchronization. Alex realized that the Virelians' natural method was about more than DNA extraction. It was about cooperation, about aligning with an entirely different species, way of thinking. The challenge required him to anticipate their responses, to feel the subtle cues in their movements and the chamber's vibrations. He adjusted his approach, using both logic and intuition to navigate the shifting puzzle. As the day progressed, the complexity increased. New symbols appeared, floating in 3 dimensions. The chamber introduced environmental changes. Gravity shifted slightly, the temperature varied, and light pulses altered his perception. Each adjustment tested his ability to remain calm and focused. Alex relied on a combination of human ingenuity and adaptability, noticing patterns in the chaos, predicting outcomes and experimenting when necessary. At one point, a sequence seemed impossible. The symbols rotated in ways that defied simple logic. Alex frowned and studied the pattern carefully, then remembered an old human strategy: step back and approach the problem from a different perspective. He floated backward slightly, letting the chamber's anti-gravity assist his movement, and suddenly the symbols aligned differently. With a few precise gestures, he completed the sequence, causing the chamber to glow brightly in response. The lead Violion's eyes shone with approval. "You have demonstrated creativity and perseverance. These qualities are rare among other species. Continue to the next phase, where emotional alignment becomes paramount." Alex felt a rush of satisfaction. Humans were known for adaptability and innovation, and in this moment, he embodied both. But he also knew that the process would not become easier. Emotional alignment sounded even more abstract than the puzzles and patterns. He took a deep breath and followed the violins deeper into the chamber. This part of the chamber was softer, warmer. The walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. He noticed the violin's subtle gestures: a tilt of the head, a flicker of light in their eyes, and slight shifts in posture. These were cues he had to match to synchronize fully with them. It was a form of communication that required patience, attention, and empathy, human qualities that often went unnoticed in routine exploration, but were now his greatest assets. Alex began mirroring their movements, adjusting his own posture and breathing. The chamber responded to the harmony between him and the violins. Patterns formed more quickly, floating symbols moved into place more smoothly, and the ambient light pulsed steadily, a visual indication of success. He felt a subtle connection forming, as though the chamber itself recognized his ability to cooperate with an alien mind. The challenge intensified when the chamber introduced a series of unexpected changes: floating spheres that shifted unpredictably, light patterns that disoriented, and soft vibrations that required precise timing to navigate. Alex realized that the task was testing his ability to adapt in real time, to remain flexible while maintaining synchronization with the violin's intent. He adjusted his movements fluidly, relying on human reflexes, intuition, and his growing understanding of their subtle cues. At one point, a sphere moved too quickly, threatening to disrupt the alignment. Alex's mind raced. He remembered a technique used in human robotics: anticipate the trajectory and adjust the environment proactively. He reached out with precise gestures, subtly guiding the sphere into position without breaking the flow of synchronization. The chamber responded with a pulse of bright light, signaling success. The violins nodded, clearly impressed. "Your species excels in combining logic, observation, and intuition. This is precisely what we require. Proceed to the final stage of the day: cooperative problem solving under stress." Alex's stomach tightened. He had expected mental and emotional challenges, but stress testing was different. It would demand every bit of his human ingenuity and resilience. The chamber shifted again, creating sudden obstacles: moving walls, erratic light patterns, and changes in gravity that tested his balance and focus. He had to think quickly, anticipate outcomes, and maintain synchronization with the violins simultaneously. He focused, relying on his training and natural human instincts. Every step, every movement, every adjustment was calculated. Mistakes caused minor setbacks, but Alex used each error as feedback, learning and adapting. The chamber seemed almost alive, responding dynamically to his decisions. He felt a surge of pride. Humans thrived when faced with complex challenges, and here he was proving it to an entire alien species. Hours passed, though Alex lost track of time. The final obstacle required precise coordination between him and the violins. A series of glowing panels had to be activated in perfect sequence, each responding to emotional cues and synchronized movements. One misstep, and the sequence would fail. He concentrated, observing the Virelian's subtle gestures, mirroring their intent while anticipating the panel's reactions. With a final, deliberate movement, the sequence completed. The chamber filled with light, soft music, and a gentle vibration that resonated throughout Alex's body. The Virelian's eyes glowed brighter, and a sense of accomplishment settled over him. He had passed the day's trials, proving both his intelligence and emotional adaptability. The lead Virelian stepped closer. "You have exceeded our expectations, Commander Raiden. Your species demonstrates qualities that are invaluable to our process. Tomorrow, you will begin the next stage, where your ingenuity will be applied in collaborative creation." Alex exhaled, relief and pride mingling in equal measure. Humans were not only capable of surviving in alien environments, but of excelling, even in challenges designed to test entirely unfamiliar abilities. The Virelians had sought human DNA, yes, but it was clear that they valued the human mind and spirit even more. As he returned to his quarters, Alex reflected on the day's events. The puzzles, the synchronization, the adaptive challenges, all had tested him in ways no mission report could prepare for. Yet he had prevailed, relying on observation, reasoning, creativity, and empathy. Humanity's strengths were not physical alone. They lay in ingenuity, resilience, and the ability to thrive in unpredictability. He settled into his bed, letting the station's gentle hum lull him into thought. Outside the window, stars stretched endlessly across the blackness of space. Somewhere out there, other species watched and wondered at the humans' capabilities. Here, on Aurelia, the Virelians had seen them firsthand. Alex smiled, thinking about the next stage. Challenges awaited, yes, but he was ready. Humans had faced the unknown countless times, and their greatest tool was the ability to adapt, innovate, and persevere. Tomorrow would test him further, but tonight he rested, confident in his species' capacity to meet even the most alien of expectations. And somewhere deep in the chamber, the Virelians watched, hopeful and intrigued, aware that humanity had more to offer than any of them had imagined. The morning light spilled through the observation window of Alex's quarters, but it did little to calm the fluttering in his chest. Today, he would face the next stage of the Virelian's process. Unlike the previous day, which had focused on observation and adaptation, today's challenge was said to be about collaboration and creation. The details were vague, and that uncertainty gnawed at him. Humans thrived in the unknown, but the unknown still carried weight. Alex dressed and checked his personal equipment, making sure everything was in place. He didn't know what he would need, but preparation had always been a human advantage. Even the simplest tools could be combined in clever ways, and improvisation had saved humanity more times than he could count. As he stepped into the corridor, he noticed that the Virelians were already waiting, their presence calm but commanding. "You are ready," the lead Virelian said, her voice melodic and smooth. "Today, you will not only respond to our tests but actively participate in creation. Your species' ingenuity will be required more than ever." Alex nodded. "Understood, I'll do my best." They led him to a chamber larger than the previous ones. The walls were made of a crystalline material that reflected light in subtle colors. Suspended in the center of the room was a structure that seemed to be alive, a lattice of glowing strands that shifted and pulsed. Alex could feel the subtle vibrations under his feet, like the chamber itself was aware of his presence. "This is the collaborative interface," the Virelian explained. "It will respond to your thought, movement, and emotion. You must work with it, not against it." Alex stepped closer, studying the structure. It moved in ways that were both organic and mechanical, shifting as he moved, reacting to his presence. He could feel the challenge immediately. The interface required intuition, observation, and creativity all at once. He had solved puzzles and adapted to unpredictable environments before, But this was different. Here, he had to create, to contribute actively rather than merely respond. A soft hum filled the room, and strands of the lattice began to shift, forming patterns that resembled symbols and shapes. Alex reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing a glowing strand. It pulsed under his touch, sending a wave of light through the structure. He realized that the interface responded not just to motion, but to intent. His mind became a tool, and his decisions shaped the environment around him. The Violins observed silently, their eyes glowing softly. Alex could feel their attention, not in a threatening way, but as if they were studying his every move, waiting to see how human creativity could influence an alien system. He took a deep breath and allowed his mind to focus. He began experimenting. Small gestures produced small changes, subtle manipulations altered the flow of light, and slight shifts in posture adjusted the patterns. Slowly, he began to understand the rules. The interface responded to harmony, to the alignment of thought, movement, and emotion. It was a collaboration in the truest sense, requiring both precision and imagination. Hours passed in a rhythm of trial and error. Some attempts failed spectacularly, causing the lattice to collapse into chaotic light. Others succeeded partially, producing fleeting patterns that shimmered and vanished. Alex grew more confident with each success, adjusting his approach based on what he learned. Humans had an innate ability to adapt, to learn from mistakes quickly, and that advantage became more apparent with every attempt. The challenge intensified when the interface introduced obstacles. Sections of the lattice moved unpredictably, strands shifted rapidly, and light pulses threatened to overwhelm his senses. Alex realized that this stage was testing more than creativity. It was testing focus under pressure, the ability to remain calm and analytical while chaos unfolded around him. He relied on human intuition. One of his greatest strengths had always been the ability to improvise, to find solutions where none seemed obvious. He noticed patterns in the chaos, subtle hints in the movement of the lattice, and used them to anticipate the next shift. With careful timing and deliberate gestures, he began to guide the structure into coherent forms, weaving light and motion into shapes that seemed almost alive. The Violinian's eyes shone brighter as they observed him. "You demonstrate exceptional adaptability," the lead Violinian said. "Your species' approach to creation is unique. Continue." Alex felt a surge of pride. Humans had always excelled when faced with the unexpected, and here, in collaboration with an alien system, he was proving it again. But the challenge was far from over. The interface introduced a new element, multiple strands that required simultaneous manipulation. The strands moved independently, responding to thought, movement, and emotion all at once. One mistake could collapse the entire structure. He focused, dividing his attention between the strands. His mind calculated trajectories while his body mirrored the patterns. He adjusted his emotional rhythm to match the subtle pulses of the lattice. It was a delicate balance, requiring precision and intuition simultaneously. At one point, two strands collided in a chaotic tangle. Alex paused, assessing the situation. Instead of forcing a solution, he stepped back and considered the interface from a different perspective. He noticed that slight changes in posture could redirect the strands without disrupting the overall pattern. With careful adjustments, he guided them into alignment, restoring order. The interface pulsed brightly in acknowledgement, and Alex allowed himself a small smile. Time seemed to blur. He lost track of hours as he continued to manipulate the lattice, responding to its shifts and predicting its behavior. The interface was no longer a foreign system. It felt like a partner, responding to his creativity and ingenuity. He realized that this was the essence of the Violinian's natural method: collaboration, understanding, and the application of uniquely human qualities in an alien context. By midday, the chamber introduced a final test. The lattice formed complex, intertwined patterns that required precise coordination between him and the Virelians. He had to anticipate their movements, respond to subtle cues, and maintain synchronization with the structure all at once. Failure was possible, but so was success, and the consequences of the latter promised profound results. Alex's focus sharpened. He mirrored the Virelian's gestures, adjusted his timing to match theirs, and allowed his intuition to guide the interface. Slowly, patterns emerged, coherent and radiant. The strands flowed together in harmony, forming shapes that were both intricate and elegant. The chamber glowed in recognition, and Alex could feel a sense of accomplishment washing over him. The lead Virelian stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You have succeeded in this stage, Commander Raiden. Your species demonstrates qualities that are invaluable to our process. You have not only adapted but created, guided, and harmonized. Tomorrow, you will face a challenge that will test your coordination on a scale beyond what you have experienced today." Alex exhaled deeply, relief and pride mingling in equal measure. Humans had always been explorers, problem solvers, and innovators. Here, in collaboration with a species whose biology and culture were completely alien, he had demonstrated those strengths once more. The Virelians had sought his DNA, yes, but it was clear they valued his ingenuity, creativity, and ability to adapt under pressure even more. As he returned to his quarters, Alex reflected on the day's events. The collaborative interface had been unlike anything he had ever encountered. It had tested his intellect, intuition, and emotional alignment in ways no simulation or mission report could replicate. Yet he had succeeded, relying on human strengths, observation, creativity, adaptability, and perseverance. He sat at the edge of his bed, staring out at the stars beyond the station's viewing window. Somewhere out there, other civilizations might wonder about humanity's capabilities. Here, in the presence of the Virelians, those capabilities had been displayed in full measure. He allowed himself a small, wry smile. Humans had always excelled when faced with challenges that seemed impossible, and this was no exception. The thought of tomorrow's challenge brought a thrill of anticipation. It would be harder, yes, and require even greater coordination and ingenuity. But Alex knew that humans thrived in the unknown, and he would meet it with the same determination and resourcefulness that had carried his species through countless obstacles. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the unfolding collaboration between human and alien. And somewhere deep within the chamber, the Virelians watched, intrigued and hopeful, aware that humanity had more to offer than they had ever imagined. Alex leaned back and allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The puzzles, the challenges, the synchronization, it had all tested him, pushed him to the limits of his abilities, and yet he had prevailed. Humans had a unique strength, a combination of intellect, creativity, and resilience that allowed them to thrive even in the most alien circumstances. The Virelians had recognized that today, and it was a reminder that humanity's value extended far beyond what any report or measurement could capture. As night fell on the station, Alex rested, knowing that tomorrow would bring new tests, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove the strength of the human spirit. And in the quiet of the observation deck, surrounded by the infinite expanse of space, he felt a quiet pride. Humanity had been called to a task unlike any other, and he was ready to meet it head-on, as only a human could. The station was quiet in the early hours of the morning, but Alex Raiden felt no rest. Sleep had eluded him as his mind replayed the events of the previous day. The Virelians' challenges were unlike anything he had faced before, demanding intelligence, emotional understanding, and creativity simultaneously. Yet today promised to push him even further. The lead Virelian had said the next stage would test coordination on a scale beyond what he had experienced. He dressed methodically, checking his tools and scanning his environment for any signs of what lay ahead. Despite the uncertainty, a sense of excitement coursed through him. Humans had always thrived in situations where the rules were unknown and the challenges unprecedented. This was no exception. It was the perfect environment for human ingenuity, and Alex was determined to rise to the occasion. The Violins awaited him in the corridor. Their presence was calm, confident, and slightly imposing. Alex noticed the subtle shimmer of their skin, the grace in their movements, and the faint pulse of energy that seemed to radiate from them. They spoke as one, a chorus of clarity that carried authority without aggression. "You are ready, Commander Raiden," the lead Violin said. "Today, you will face a challenge that will test all your abilities. Observation, creativity, adaptation, and emotional alignment will not be enough. You must act decisively, anticipate outcomes, and guide the process to success." Alex nodded, feeling the familiar surge of determination. Humans had survived countless challenges through intelligence, courage, and flexibility. Whatever the Violins had prepared, he would meet it head-on. They led him to the chamber, larger and more complex than any he had seen before. The crystalline walls glimmered in shifting colors, and the floor seemed to pulse beneath his feet as if alive. At the center of the room floated a massive lattice of glowing strands, more intricate and dynamic than the previous interface. It shifted continuously, responding to the slightest motion and the faintest thought. Alex felt the weight of the task immediately. "This is the ultimate coordination test," the lead Violin explained. "The structure will challenge your timing, reasoning, and creativity simultaneously. One misstep can undo the progress you have made. Human ingenuity will determine the outcome." Alex stepped closer, studying the structure carefully. The lattice moved in a complex pattern, almost chaotic at first glance. Strands intertwined and separated, forming shapes that constantly shifted and pulsed. His mind raced as he tried to anticipate the rules governing the movement. Every instinct told him to move carefully, observe deeply, and act decisively. The challenge began immediately. The lattice shifted rapidly, responding to his movements and thoughts. He had to adjust in real time, balancing observation with action. Small gestures produced small changes, while larger, more deliberate movements could influence multiple strands at once. He realized that hesitation would be costly. Timing and precision were essential. Hours passed as he navigated the interface. Strands shifted unpredictably, some forming patterns that required precise coordination, others moving in ways that seemed random. Alex relied on human intuition, recognizing patterns in chaos, predicting outcomes, and adjusting his actions. He realized the key was not brute force or rapid reaction, but careful observation, creativity, and the ability to adapt. The Violins observed silently, their eyes glowing with subtle intensity. Alex could feel their attention like a gentle pressure, urging him to perform at his best. He understood that his success would not only prove human capability, but also serve as a demonstration of the species' unique strengths, creativity, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. As the task grew more complex, the lattice introduced new challenges. Multiple strands moved independently, requiring simultaneous attention and coordination. Light pulses shifted unpredictably, and subtle vibrations in the floor demanded quick reflexes and calm precision. One misstep could collapse the entire structure, but Alex remained focused. Humans excelled under pressure, and he intended to prove it. At one point, two strands collided in a tangle that seemed impossible to resolve. Alex paused briefly, assessing the situation. Instead of forcing the strands apart, he observed their movement, anticipating their paths, and adjusted his gestures to guide them naturally into alignment. The lattice pulsed brightly in response, signaling success. He felt a surge of pride. Humans had always thrived by thinking creatively, and this was no different. The Virelians introduced yet another variable. Sections of the lattice began moving at different speeds, requiring Alex to anticipate multiple trajectories simultaneously. He shifted his weight, timed his movements, and allowed intuition to guide him. It was exhausting, mentally and physically, but his human resilience carried him forward. He had faced countless challenges before, and the principle remained the same: observe, adapt, and act decisively. By midday, the structure had grown even more intricate. Patterns intertwined in complex shapes, and strands moved unpredictably. The challenge required precision, timing, and understanding of the Virelians' subtle cues. Alex mirrored their gestures, adjusted to their rhythm, and guided the lattice with a combination of intellect and intuition. He realized the interface was more than a test. It was a collaboration, a demonstration of human capability in an alien system. Hours passed, but Alex did not falter. Each success built confidence, each failure offered insight. The lattice responded to his ingenuity, pulsing brightly when he guided strands into alignment, dimming when he hesitated or miscalculated. He understood that the task was not only about precision, but about demonstrating human creativity and adaptability in a way that no other species could. Finally, the interface presented the ultimate test. Multiple sections of the lattice moved simultaneously, creating a chaotic but beautiful display of light and motion. Alex had to anticipate every movement, align with the Virelians' subtle cues, and guide the entire structure into coherence. The challenge was immense, but his confidence in human ingenuity gave him focus. He began moving, synchronizing gestures with thought and emotion. Strands responded fluidly to his actions, forming patterns that shimmered with light. The structure seemed to recognize his intent, reacting to his creativity and precision. Hours of observation, adaptation, and coordination culminated in this moment. A tense silence filled the chamber. The lattice twisted, shifted, and finally settled into a harmonious configuration. The room glowed with soft light, and a gentle hum resonated through the floor. The Virelian's eyes shone brightly, and Alex felt a wave of accomplishment wash over him. He had succeeded, demonstrating not only human intelligence and adaptability, but also creativity and emotional synchronization in an alien system. The lead Virelian stepped closer, her eyes radiating approval. "Commander Raiden, you have surpassed expectations. Your species demonstrates qualities that are rare and invaluable. Your coordination, ingenuity, and adaptability have ensured the success of this stage." Alex exhaled, relief and pride mingling in equal measure. Humans had always thrived under unpredictable circumstances, relying on creativity, intelligence, and resilience. Here, in collaboration with an alien species, those traits had been tested to the extreme and proven. "You have guided the process to completion," she continued. "Your contribution will have lasting impact on our species. Tomorrow, the final stage will begin. It will be the most challenging yet, requiring all you have learned and more." Alex nodded, understanding that the final stage would push him even further. The Virelians had sought his DNA, yes, but it was clear they valued the human mind, spirit, and creativity even more. The process was not about domination or control. It was about collaboration, innovation, and demonstrating human potential. As he returned to his quarters, Alex reflected on the day's events. The challenges had tested his intellect, intuition, and emotional synchronization in ways he had never experienced. Yet humans excelled under pressure, and he had relied on every skill that made his species remarkable: observation, reasoning, creativity, and resilience. He sat by the observation window, gazing at the stars. Somewhere out there, other civilizations might wonder about humanity's strengths. Here, the Virelians had witnessed them firsthand. They had seen how humans could adapt, innovate, and persevere even in the most alien circumstances. Alex allowed himself a small, wry smile. Humans had always turned challenges into opportunities, and this was no different. The thought of tomorrow's final stage brought a thrill of anticipation. It would be harder, yes, and demand greater coordination, creativity, and focus than ever before. But Alex knew that humans thrived in the unknown. He would meet it with the same determination and ingenuity that had carried his species through countless obstacles. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the blackness of space, silent witnesses to the ongoing collaboration between human and alien. Deep within the chamber, the Virelians watched, intrigued and hopeful, aware that humanity had more to offer than they had ever imagined. Alex leaned back, letting the hum of the station wash over him. The lattice, the challenges, the synchronization, it had all tested him, pushed him to the limits, and yet he had prevailed. Humans had a unique strength, a combination of intellect, creativity, and resilience that allowed them to thrive even in the most alien of circumstances. The Virelians had recognized that today, and it was a reminder of what made his species extraordinary. As night fell over the station, Alex rested, ready for whatever the final stage would bring. He had faced uncertainty, adapted to alien challenges, and demonstrated human capability in ways no one had expected. Tomorrow would test him again, but he would meet it as only a human could, ingenious, resilient, and unyielding. The station was quiet in the early hours, but Alex Ryden's mind was far from calm. Today would be the final stage of the Virelian's process, the ultimate test of everything he had learned over the past days. Observation, adaptation, emotional synchronization, and creativity, all of these would be required together in a single challenge. The lead Virelian had told him it would be the most demanding yet, and Alex felt the weight of expectation pressing on his shoulders. He dressed carefully, checking his equipment one last time. Simple tools, quick reflexes, and clear thinking had always been humans' greatest advantages. He didn't know exactly what awaited him, but he knew one thing clearly: humanity thrived in the unknown. Where other species might falter when confronted with alien systems, humans could observe, adapt, and innovate. That confidence steadied him as he walked down the corridor to meet the Virelians. They were waiting, their presence calm and poised. Alex noticed the familiar shimmer of their skin and the faint glow of their eyes, but today they seemed to radiate an extra intensity. The lead Virelian spoke in her melodic, commanding voice. "Commander Ryden, the final stage begins now. You will guide the interface to its ultimate configuration. Your actions will determine the success of this process, and by extension, the future of our species." Alex swallowed hard. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. This was no longer simply a test of adaptability or creativity. It was a moment of responsibility. But he drew confidence from the human traits that had carried him this far: ingenuity, resilience, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. They led him into the chamber, larger and more intricate than any he had seen before. The crystalline walls reflected light in shifting patterns, and the floor pulsed faintly beneath his feet. At the center floated the massive lattice, a complex network of glowing strands that moved continuously, shifting in response to thought, movement, and subtle emotion. Alex felt a thrill of both anticipation and apprehension. This was the culmination of everything he had experienced so far. "This is the interface at its final stage," the lead Virelian said. "It will challenge your focus, coordination, and creativity to their limits. You must act decisively and in harmony with us. One mistake could undo everything you have accomplished." Alex nodded, taking a deep breath. He studied the lattice carefully, observing its movements, the flow of light, and the patterns of the strands. The interface seemed almost alive, reacting to his presence with subtle pulses and shifts. He realized that the key to success was the same principle he had applied in previous stages: observe, anticipate, and act with precision while remaining adaptable. The challenge began immediately. Strands moved rapidly, intertwining in complex patterns that shifted unpredictably. Alex responded, adjusting his movements and gestures to guide the strands into alignment. He mirrored the Violion's subtle cues, aligning his actions with theirs while simultaneously predicting the lattice's reactions. Each successful adjustment caused the interface to glow brighter, signaling progress. Hours passed as Alex worked. The complexity of the lattice demanded his full attention. Sections moved independently, requiring precise timing and coordination. Light pulses shifted unpredictably, and subtle vibrations in the floor tested his balance and focus. One mistake could collapse an entire section, but Alex relied on human intuition, pattern recognition, and creativity to maintain control. At one point, two strands twisted into a chaotic tangle that threatened to disrupt the entire configuration. Alex paused briefly, assessing the situation. Instead of forcing a solution, he observed their movement, anticipating their paths. With careful, deliberate gestures, he guided the strands into alignment, restoring harmony. The lattice pulsed brightly in acknowledgement. A thrill of satisfaction surged through him. Humans had always excelled by thinking creatively, and this moment was no different. The Violins introduced additional variables. Sections of the lattice began moving at different speeds, and subtle shifts in the ambient light changed the perception of patterns. Alex adjusted fluidly, balancing observation, intuition, and action. He realized that the challenge was not merely technical, but also a test of human resilience under pressure. Even fatigue, stress, and uncertainty could not shake his focus. Hours blurred together. The lattice grew more complex, more dynamic, requiring multi-layered coordination and simultaneous manipulation. Alex's mind worked rapidly, predicting movements, adjusting gestures, and anticipating the Violion's subtle cues. The interface responded to him in real time, reflecting his ingenuity and adaptability. He felt a growing sense of connection with both the lattice and the Violins. By midday, the challenge reached its peak. The lattice formed a chaotic network of strands, light pulses, and shifting patterns. Alex had to guide multiple sections simultaneously while maintaining synchronization with the Violins. He focused intensely, moving with precision, mirroring gestures, and anticipating outcomes. Each successful alignment caused the lattice to pulse, light spreading across its strands in a coordinated display. The interface introduced a final complication: a set of fast-moving strands that required predictive coordination. Alex studied their motion, recognizing the pattern of acceleration and curves. Using a combination of observation, intuition, and calculated gestures, he guided the strands into alignment with the rest of the lattice. The room filled with radiant light, pulsing in harmony with the floor and walls. The interface had responded fully to his ingenuity and coordination. A silence fell over the chamber. Then, the lattice shifted into a final, perfect configuration, radiating with intricate patterns of light that seemed almost alive. Alex felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had successfully completed the Violion's ultimate challenge, proving human capability not through brute strength, but through observation, creativity, emotional alignment, and adaptability. The lead Violin stepped forward, her eyes glowing brightly. "Commander Raiden, you have exceeded our expectations. Your species demonstrates qualities that are rare, remarkable, and invaluable. Through your ingenuity, coordination, and perseverance, you have completed the process successfully." Alex allowed himself a small, proud smile. Humans had always thrived when faced with the unknown, and today they had done so on a scale that no other species could match. The Violins had sought his DNA, yes, but it was clear they valued human intelligence, adaptability, and creativity above all. You have ensured the success of this stage and contributed to the advancement of our species, the lead Virelian continued. Through this process, your DNA, combined with your unique problem-solving approach, will help us evolve. Your actions have demonstrated that humanity is not only capable but essential in collaboration with other intelligent species. Alex exhaled, relief and pride washing over him. He had not only survived but excelled in challenges designed for beings far beyond his own biology. Humans had always been resourceful, adaptable, and resilient, and in this moment those traits had shone brightly. As he returned to his quarters, Alex reflected on everything he had experienced over the past days. The Virelian's process had tested his intellect, creativity, emotional alignment, and coordination to the fullest. Yet he had prevailed, relying on human strengths that had been honed over millennia of survival, exploration, and innovation. He sat by the observation window, staring out at the endless stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, other civilizations might speculate about humanity's capabilities. Here, the Virelians had seen them firsthand. They had observed how humans could adapt, innovate, and persevere even in the most alien circumstances. Alex allowed himself a wry smile. Humans had always turned challenges into opportunities, and this was no different. The thought of the Virelians' future brought him satisfaction. Their species had been struggling, their genetic diversity limited, their progress stagnant. Through collaboration, guidance, and the application of human ingenuity, Alex had helped open a path forward. The interface had not only facilitated DNA transfer, but also demonstrated that humans could contribute to interspecies advancement in ways that went far beyond simple biology. As night fell over the station, Alex allowed himself a rare moment of rest. He had faced uncertainty, adapted to alien challenges, and demonstrated human capability in ways no one had expected. Humanity's strengths had shown: intelligence, creativity, resilience, and the ability to collaborate across species. The Virelians had recognized that today, and it was a reminder of what made humans extraordinary. The final stage had proven one thing clearly: humanity could thrive in situations that no other species could navigate as effectively. Where others might fail when confronted with complexity and unpredictability, humans could observe, adapt, and innovate. Alex had embodied those qualities fully, and the Virelians had witnessed them firsthand. In the quiet of his quarters, Alex allowed himself to reflect. He thought of the challenges, the successes, and the lessons learned. Humans had survived countless unknowns, adapted to every environment, and innovated when no solution seemed obvious. Today, that tradition had continued. He had not only contributed his DNA, but had also demonstrated the unique strengths that defined his species. Somewhere deep within the station, the Virelians observed and recorded. Their species had gained something more than genetic material. They had witnessed human ingenuity in action. Alex felt a surge of pride. Humanity had always risen to challenges, and here, on a distant station among alien species, it had done so again. As he looked out at the stars, he knew that the collaboration he had participated in was only the beginning. Humanity's influence, through creativity, adaptability, and resilience, could extend far beyond this station, shaping alliances and advancing civilizations across the galaxy. He allowed himself a quiet smile, knowing that his actions had not only helped the Virelians but had also reaffirmed the remarkable potential of his species. Alex lay back, letting the gentle hum of the station wash over him. The final stage was complete. Humans had proven themselves capable of extraordinary achievements, not through force but through ingenuity, collaboration, and perseverance. The Virelians' challenge had been met, and humanity had emerged stronger, respected, and recognized for qualities that made it unique in the universe. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the story of human ingenuity and resilience. Deep within the station, the Virelians began to implement the results of the process, their species slowly progressing thanks to the collaboration and guidance of a single human. Alex closed his eyes, proud, confident, and ready for whatever future challenges awaited, knowing that humanity's legacy was secure and shining brightly among the stars.